afternoon, everyone. I'm Molly Young from the Miami University Alumni Association. As part of the Miami University Alumni Association's webinar series, today we present Inside Engineering and Computing, looking back at systems analysis. Joining us for today's conversation are panelists Dr. Beena Sukumaran, Louise Morman, and Tom Schaber. Dr. Beena Sukumaran is Dean of Miami's College of Engineering and Computing, previously serving as Vice President for Research at Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey. She received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the College of Engineering in Trivandrum, India, a master's in civil engineering from Auburn University, and earned a doctorate from Purdue University. Louise Morman is a 1975 alumna and is currently the executive director of the Lockheed Martin Leadership Institute in the College of Engineering and Computing at Miami University. Majoring in systems analysis, Louise earned a bachelor's degree from Miami, an MBA from Wright State, and an MA in leadership and transformational learning from New York University. Louise returned to Miami in 2011 to start the Lockheed Martin Leadership Institute to cultivate leaders in their profession. And finally, Dr. Tom Schaber is a retired professor of systems analysis at Miami. Tom completed his bachelor's degree in economics, an MBA in finance, and PhD in operations research at the University of Cincinnati. He began his teaching career at UC in 1965 and joined the faculty at Miami teaching systems analysis in 1973. He retired from the Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering at Miami in 2007 and is currently racquetball teacher extraordinaire in the College of Education, Health, and Society. Welcome to Beena, Louise, and Tom, and thank you for joining us today. Just so the audience knows, questions were collected during registration, and our panelists will address some of those throughout the webinar today. You'll also have the option to ask questions during the webinar by clicking the Ask a Question button on the bottom of your screen. Please note that in the interest of time available, we may not get to every question. Today's webinar will last about an hour, including time for questions and answers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Beena to get our conversation started. Welcome.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you. And thank you, Tom and Louise, for joining me. We have actually become friends since my short tenure here, and I bumped into Professor Schaber when he was biking to our building one of those days. So he does still bike, and he's always on his bike all around Oxford. So just to, and this is a conversation for me to learn about the history of our College of Engineering and Computing, but also to learn about systems analysis over the years. And I know that was our largest program, and it is also one of our oldest programs. We will have others in the series over the months to come, especially focused on paper science and engineering, and another one around manufacturing itself. So some interesting facts that I collected as we were preparing for this webinar is that systems analysis is our largest alumni group. About 3,300 of our 10,000 living alumni in the College of Engineering and Computing are systems analysis alumni. So welcome to those who have joined us, and I hope to meet you in person soon. But I wanted to get us started off by throwing a question to Professor Schaber. So can you talk about the evolution of the degree over the years?
I can. But first, let me invite you all to step into my office.
Oh.
There. Okay, now that you're in my office, I prepared some notes here that I knew I was going to be asked this question. So I'd like to read them all to you. I can't remember everything that's in there, so I'd like to read them to you if I may. Okay, started in 1963. turns out that there was a program called NESEP, which had people who were in the Navy, and they were allowed to take our program, and they had all the tuition and housing and board paid for by the Navy, which I think speaks to the strength of the curriculum at that time, because we had computing programs and we had operations research. I came on board in 1973, and I was stunned, I say stunned, by the curriculum at that time. Let me read a few of the courses that were required when I came on board. Hold on, it's not really as thick as I showed you. I've just got a few pages here. So excuse me, the first year was assembler language programming. And for people that didn't even know how to program to begin with, that was whoa, 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 whoa. Moving on, sophomore year, analysis of deterministic systems, introduction to linear algebra, multidimensional calculus, if you will, economics 101, and 5 hours of physics. What the heck? Throw in 5 hours of physics to these sophomores. Junior year, linear programming, analysis of stochastic systems, introduction to probability and statistics, technical writing, that wasn't so bad. And then the senior year, simulation. I tell you, I got here in 73. I was stunned by this curriculum. I thought, what the heck am I doing here? These are the same courses that I took in graduate school, and they use the same books. I was overwhelmed. I was stunned. Along about that time, let me read a typical course description, which kind of set the pace or the tone for the systems analysis program up through about 84, 85. Systems analysis is the process of analyzing a client's needs. So that was an interesting part of our program. We were really thinking and focusing on the client, especially in the areas of computerized application systems and solving problems in a logical and structured way. So that was a typical course description, and that kind of held, as far as I can tell, until about 1984. In 1984, we restricted enrollment. We had so many people applying to the program that we restricted enrollment. And I recall a commercial that was along about that time was by Apple. And the commercial showed a kid getting on a train, waving goodbye to his parents. And then he comes back apparently 3 months later, and his parents say, "What happened?" He says, "I didn't know computing." So that type of thinking at that time just caused interest in computing to mushroom. And so at that time, we restricted enrollment. A year later, our enrollment plummeted, and we thought it was because we restricted enrollment, but we found out that it was really going down all over the country for a while. Let's see. Okay. And we changed the description at that time. The description then said, the systems analysis curriculum addresses the art and science of decision making. So the client has kind of left the program now, and the emphasis is more on a broader perspective. Okay. 1988 through 90, we offered 3 options. Students can tailor their education by choosing one of 3 options: computer science, operations research, or information systems analysis. So we're trending now towards computer science. 2001, we had a name change from Department of Systems Analysis to Department of Computer.
Buster.
My library barks. Sorry. From Department of Systems Analysis to Department of Computer Science and Systems Analysis. I remember when we changed that. There was a faculty meeting, and there was a lot of contention because there were those of us who were still client-oriented, and there were many more coming in. The new faculty wanted to head towards the computer science. And so a lot of contention, long time. We had one faculty member who was holding out for computer science, and he did not want systems analysis included in the title. Finally, he relented, and in an infamous moment in which I was intimately involved, I kissed him on the forehead and thanked him. And so that's remembered by a lot of my friends during that time. So we changed it to CAS, CSA, Computer Science and Systems Analysis. Okay, and we did that because while we were a great program as a systems analysis, the world was thinking in terms of computer science now, and we weren't sure that everybody knew what systems analysis really meant. And so if we wanted to stay current and stay recognizable, we had to get computer science in there. And now I learned, because I retired from full-time in 2004, and about that time we came up with 2 separate programs now. So we now have computer science, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and we have software engineering, Bachelor of Science in Software Engineering, which is similar to the old SAN, old systems analysis. And that ends my history. I didn't really have that thick of a report to report. Okay.
So maybe Tom, I can, so Tom was my professor.
Yes.
When I was in college, and maybe I can go down memory lane as a student for a moment.
Yes, of course.
Because I think the things that we remember from those days are Krieger Hall, and that's where we had almost all of our classes, and spending hours and hours in the basement of Hughes Hall. That, you know, those were the days where we took our box of cards over there and sat and waited. And I think, you know, the systems analysis program was so amazing. And when I talked to all the folks over the years, we all felt we were at just this lucky and amazing time to have this opportunity, because we were on the front end of what was happening in computers, and our program was so unique. I think there were maybe 2 in the United States.
Yeah.
And as Tom said, you know, when you think about that, the Navy had people from all over the country coming. So it really was unique. But the things we remember were things like when you would, so you had to wait. I mean, this is hard to remember, but you had to wait hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
To get your program back.
Hey, Louise,
and
were you
yes.
there for SWORC? Southwest
Yes,
Ohio Regional Computing Center. They sent they couriered the boxes down to the University of Cincinnati where the computer was. That was in the first year or 2 that I was here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's hard to imagine now, but those of us from the early days remember something called JCL, Job Control Language, and you would wait for hours, or in the case, you know, what Tom was talking about, sometimes a whole day. And if you got 1 sheet of paper back, it most of the time meant you had JCL.
Wrong JCL.
And your heart just sank. So while we were taking all these really amazing, cool courses, we were also having the experience of students. And one of the really positive things was we all really got to know one another, because we were all hanging around waiting. So it really became a community. And one of the courses you didn't mention, Tom, was something called music. Yeah. So the very first class I ever had, in this case it was in 1972, was from our department chair. And his name was Larry Prince, and he's the one who started the whole systems analysis program at Miami. And he taught the class himself. So here we were, these kids that knew nothing. And he taught the class, and he had created a program, or a language, and it stood for Miami University Simulated Computer.
Oh, wow.
And
instructional computer. That was the I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Oh, I just thought of it.
Yeah. he was an amazing person that put this, this idea together to have undergraduates do all the programming languages. In those days, they were things like Fortran and COBOL, and we had PL1, etc.
Pascal.
Analog computers. Well, Pascal was after me, but yes. And there are many other languages, Java and all the things of today. Yes. But also combining that with the mathematical modeling was really helped us think in conceptual ways, and especially with the client focus. It was really a very cool experience. And we also had required special interest areas. So I remember the professors telling us that computers didn't have value unto themselves. It's what you use the computer for. Which, by the way, I thought was really insightful and wise. And so we had special interest areas that we had to take, and we had to take quite a few hours in them. And they were in all kinds of things, like you could do it in aerospace studies, you could do it in environmental studies. A lot of people did theirs in business, so you could do it in accounting or finance. People did it in manufacturing engineering. They did it in medical studies. And what's sort of interesting is Beena, who's our new dean, is now sort of, when you think about those courses that we had, all those years ago, it's kind of like the world is circling around again. Like Tom said, times changed when we switched to computer science, more in kind of a singular way, because the world was doing that then. And now I see with some of the new things that the dean is coming up with, like new majors, that they're a little bit more interdisciplinary, like we have.
Yes. So can you talk very fondly of the systems analysis program and the curriculum? How did it set you up for success, Louise? And any of your compatriots that you can speak about as well?
Well, we have so many people that have had successful careers in all kinds of fields. And I think in a way, that approach to what I call systems thinking, and I don't mean computer systems, but like Tom said, right, our professors had a lot of industry experience as well as strong academic experience. So they helped us see a bigger picture. So I'm going to tell a Tom Schaber story because this had a huge impact on my career. And at the time, as a sort of scared little kid from the farm, that was in college, and like neither of my parents graduated from high school, so this is like scary to me, right? I had Tom Schaber for the systems analysis class, and our team had put together the systems design, and we presented it, in front of the class. And I remember, of course, Mr. Schaber at the time said, "This is a very elegant design, but it isn't any good at all because the people that use it aren't going to understand it. And you always have to think of the customer because it doesn't matter if it's elegant for you. It matters how it actually works out."
Now, Louise, let me interrupt for just a second, because you said you were a scared student. I was scared to say that. I knew you were so intense as a student. Oh my God, can I really say that? Can I write that down? Oh my God, I'm going to. So we had reactions on the other end of that too,
Now the truth comes out.
But it changed my career. I mean, so I was one of the people, like when we talk, and Tom knows a lot of these alums, and we all took different paths. And I was the one who went to, what we might say the dark side, and I went more to the business side of things. In my career, I ended up in energy. But that moment, all those years ago in that class, changed how I looked at work and everything. And I mean, it changed my career. And so I've had classmates that have also been very successful. You guys remember Tony Sumrall, who was one of my classmates. So he did not go to the dark side like me. And this is the way we thought back in those days, that if you like got out of computers, you were, you know.
Hey,
So
Louise,
he was,
well,
yes.
since you just mentioned Tony Summerall, I'm going to say this. Hi, Tony. I see you just.
Yes.
So Tony was one of my students, and you mentioned JCL and Tony. So I got to tell you this story. So the first class I taught was a 4-hour computer architecture course. I had no idea what the hell that was about. No. And so all I knew was JCL. So I spent 4 weeks on JCL. I ran out of JCL, and then I started into computer architecture. I forget exactly what the title is. But anyway, Tony kept coming up and asking me all these questions. Yeah, well, that's a good question, Tony. I'll get back to you. So, Tony, you cost me a lot of miserable hours.
And so he was the tech guy, right?
Actually.
Yes. And he went to Silicon Valley and did the whole, you know, startups and all these wonderful technical things. And then, you know, we've had so many interesting alums, you know, in every kind of company that you can imagine, and they've all done well. And this isn't really telling a tale out of school, but one of the largest companies in the country, Duke Energy, the CEO of Duke Energy met her husband as they were both waiting in Krieger Hall for one of the professors in that little office, and they were both systems analysis majors. So we have many wildly successful people that have been partners in what's now called Accenture, that Procter and Gamble, all over. So I really do credit it to both our education in those courses, and I'm also going to credit it to our professors. You know,
Yes.
like here, I know Tom after all these years, and that just does not happen at a lot of universities. And when I talk to friends, alums, we all remember our professors' names, right? So, you know, I'm going to just say one that some will remember, and his name was Mr. Fisher, Dick Fisher. And I took COBOL from him. And so in those days, our professors were wonderful and we were really close with them, but they were tough. I mean, you know, they'd all worked in business, so, you know, they weren't like fooling around. And I remember that you never used an acronym in this programming language called COBOL, which was sort of like writing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more like an English language
Yes.
computer program. And if you used an acronym, like if you used SSN for a social security number, boom, he wouldn't pass your program. So we had wonderful people throughout the years. And
Well, Louise, let me interrupt Dick Fisher, because he played an integral role in my life too. When I first went there to apply, that's good. When I first went there to apply, I was in Larry Prince's office, and Dick Fisher happened to be there. So Larry said to Dick, well, Dick, why don't you take him over to Schaber Center and just chat it up and do whatever. So we did. And when we got there, everybody there was Dick Fisher's friend, and they were chatting about golf and whatever the current topics were. And I'm just sitting there. And then we walk back, and we go to Larry Prince, and Larry says, well, Dick, what do you think? Dick says, I think you'll be all right. And that was it. I was hired. Is that the way you do it now, Beena?
No, I wish.
Well, it worked.
Yes, it really did work.
And I'm going to say one thing, that I had this rare kind of strange thing that Tom mentioned to me yesterday, that I had a chance like a really long time ago to be part of, you know, Miami University in this program. And then I had this rare thing that I had my whole business career, and then came back to work with students and be with, you know, the other professors and everything again. So that's pretty rare that you have several decades in between.
Yes.
And come back. But the one thing that hasn't changed, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure of this because I sort of hang out with a lot of students and I hear them
Yes.
talk, is our professors today, like our professors back then, really care about undergraduate students. Really.
Yes.
And it's not some like promotion or, like thing that people just say to look good.
Yeah.
They really do. And, all those courses we took and all, nobody is asking me about the ability to program in PL1 anymore. I think most people have never even heard of it. But somehow that connection with the professors
Yes.
and those little tidbits, like what Tom said or Dick Fisher said, those stuck for life because they cared enough to say
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So
That's
that,
for
I think
sure.
it's the same. I mean,
It
some
is the
things
same.
change,
Yes.
but that I think is the same.
Yes, and you mentioned Larry Prince. You mentioned Dick, Dick Fisher. Of course, we have Professor Schaber. Anybody else that you recall from
Oh, we
those?
had so many wonderful people, and there were so many people that came. So many people will remember Dr. Jane, and then of course we had.
Chair. He was chair
I'm
also.
sorry?
He was
Yes.
chairman up for a while too.
And David Haddad, people will remember, and Al Sanders, I think people will remember, and Doug Troy, and Jim Kuiper, Eric
Yes.
Bachman. And I also want to mention one of the professors I had. His name is Corey Foster, who had a big impact. So there were so many. And again, I think it's sort of interesting that all these years later, I can.
There.
There we go.
He's
Wonderful.
good. He's good. JJ, good work.
Oh, it's so nice to see their pictures.
It is. It is. Oh.
And so there were many of those people that had impact on me, and then some of the later ones, of course, I'm sure had a big impact on those that followed.
Right. And so when I look at the demographics, I think most of our professors at that time were men, right? If I'm not mistaken. What about the students?
Well, it's interesting. I think if I can remember, all of our professors were men, but we started, I guess this was before, like there weren't a lot of women, but part of that was because, back then, not as many women went to college. So like I was the only girl out of my graduating class that went to a 4-year college. But we also did not come as much with the bias that women didn't do this. Because first of all, nobody did it, right? It was brand new. So nobody had told us that women don't do systems analysis, right?
Yes.
And by the mid 80s, and Tom, you can help me with this, but I believe that I know for sure that we had 99 women that graduated in systems analysis in 85, and which is a big percentage. And I know that like nationwide, it was like 37 to 40% women in computer majors.
Wow.
In the mid 80s. And then unfortunately in the whole United States, that went way down later, which, was quite a surprise to me because I wasn't dealing with young people anymore, as much. So Tom, you probably remember the number of women. I think there were maybe up to 20 women in my class when I graduated.
Louise, you're asking too much. You're asking for too much. I'm like, I remembered this. Come on, this.
But I mean, we have a lot. If you look back in the alums, you're going to see a lot of women.
Well, yeah. What about people of color? Did you have very many people of
Our
color?
percentages were not, I mean, we definitely had people of color, and I'm going to say one of the very special ones that has become a wonderful friend is Michael Gooden, who actually was on Miami University's Board of Trustees, and he was a NESEP. And Michael happens to be African American, and he also has been one of our most successful alums and starting at this gigantic company. But we didn't, I mean, that has been, I think, an issue that was a big concern, in my years, and remembering
Yes.
like we had
Yes.
come out of the 60s. And so we were
Yeah.
very aware of that. And we all felt that that was something that needed to be worked on. So I'm just going to
Yes.
give a plug to our dean here. We are so excited to have Beena here because she brings with her so much expertise in this area. So we're thrilled.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to, for our audience that is listening, right now we are the gender balance in the CEC. In fact, that is one of the questions that's been posed. Right now, we are at about 20.6% women in the College of Engineering and Computing. We have 5.6% Black African American, 4.1% Latinx, 3.7% Asian, 5.7% multiracial. So about 19% underrepresented minorities. And then we have an additional 20% international students. So that's where we are at. In terms of our gender balance, we are at the national average. So we are not doing better. In fact, we might have, compared to the systems analysis class that Louise went through, and later on in 1985, I think they had a larger percentage. So we have declined, and that is the nationwide trend that we see. And we are hoping to reverse this. And we have lots of strategies in our, that we need to try. But this is a persistent problem that we are facing. But it is, I feel, of national importance that we address this, because it is something that is being seen as a threat to even how we stay competitive as a nation. Because if we don't have students that come into the professions that are going, that basically is the need right now, in terms of engineering, in terms of computing, in terms of technological revolutions and so on, we won't be competitive as a nation. In fact, there have been lots of national reports written on that. So definitely a problem. And this was also a question that was actually posed, during when they signed up. Somebody had asked about the McVeigh data science bill. So just to give you, for folks who haven't come to campus recently, because Louise and Tom talked about the buildings that they were in. Right now, our College of Engineering and Computing is spread out over 3 buildings, Benton, Garland, and the Engineering Building. We are hoping, and they are already in discussions. We have a new building plan that will be sort of behind current buildings, and it's called the McVeigh Data Science Building. And this will be an interdisciplinary building, so housing not only, it is going to house a computer and software engineering department, but also going to house emerging technologies in business and design, a statistics department, and there will be also some labs around cybersecurity, robotics, and information science and analysis, I think, will also have a presence in that building. So exciting times, and we hope to have that building operational by the start of 2024. At least that's what the plans say. So Louise and Tom, did you want to add anything on? Because, Tom mentioned the 4-hour lectures, right? The 4-hour class that he had to teach. When you look at our students, because Louise, you were in the classroom with them, and Tom, you were also in the classroom. Do you think that our current students could sit through a 4-hour lecture? Or, how have we changed in the way we approach education?
I don't know. And 5 hours of physics.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I can't respond to that directly, but I want to say something about the quality of our faculty back then in different terms. This is not their academic, but this is their social spirit. We had a faculty member who was with us for a short time, but he had Parkinson's disease, and eventually he had to quit, and his wife had Huntington's disease. So we started, and his name is Myron Green. We started the Myron Green Supper Club, and we would provide dinners for him 5 days of the week, and that went on for 25 years. So we had new faculty come in and join the supper club, and until he died. So we did that for 25 years worth of his life.
International cuisine.
And I can tell you that is one thing that I think has always struck me, that sense of belonging that everybody has, our faculty, staff, students, right? And the pride that they take in the college, their faculty. I do think it's a family. It's a family, right?
I have an anecdote or incident that relates to what you said about what could they do it still. We were teaching quarters at one time. So, and we had a 9-week quarter. And I was teaching COBOL at the time, and somehow I got into linked lists and other data structures. I started teaching that in COBOL of all places, and it was quite a semester. But it's the students from that class, I've corresponded with some of them. They remember that. At the end of the term, I got a T-shirt, and they all wore it on the same day. I survived COBOL.
And I have to say, Professor Schaber still has some really nice T-shirts that have very succinct messages on them, and I enjoy seeing them. Yes.
Right.
But my other anecdote is, all right, so I'm teaching. I had my back to the class. I turn around, there's a note on the desk, and I picked it up and I looked at it and said, "Oh, Professor Schaber, your fly is open." So I walked out of the room, made a big point of zipping up my fly, walked out of the room, came back in. Everybody's falling on the floor laughing. That was one of my closest classes also.
Oh.
Yeah, I said, shall we start again? But a lot of students have come back and remembered that.
So there are two questions that have been posed to us. So one is, what led to the change in name of major away from systems analysis? I know, Tom, you talked about this. Yeah. So what are the similarities and differences in today's major from the old program?
Oh, well, the different types of courses, the two majors. I mean, I think that's
so
if you look at the contents of the two courses.
Yes, and in fact, I think the evolution of the name, I know Dr. Kuiper educated us also about how it evolved over the years.
Yeah.
But I think it also came about because of the job market and what the industry was looking for. They wanted.
They didn't recognize systems analysis in the industry. If you were going to talk about computers, it was computer science.
Computer science, and so right now we have about 800 majors in computer science, and we have about, I think, in computer science and software engineering. But the larger portion is in computer science, and the job market is hot. It is actually, every one of them has multiple offers by the time they graduate. And our software engineering, in fact, very recently, even I was just looking it up, it actually produces some of our highest paid undergraduates when they finish.
That's interesting.
There's such a demand for it. And we were ranked about very close to the top in terms of starting salaries for our software engineers. And then there was another question, lots of folks talking about music. Can you talk a little about that?
Well, it was something, Larry thought that assembler language was too difficult. So he wanted to simplify it, but still have the same concepts in it. So he came up with this Miami University Symbolic Instructional C course. I don't know what the C was. But anyway, he came up with it, and I was so thankful when we stopped teaching it, because I just didn't want to go off and learn something that wasn't going to be used later on. But anyway, it was his way of introducing programming to beginners.
And it probably was, if you think of, if anybody remembers the language BASIC.
Yes.
It was an easier version, and maybe even a tad easier than Fortran. But for me, it wasn't so much the language that I remember. It was him that I remember. So my very first
He was
class.
memorable.
What?
He was memorable.
And
Yeah.
he, it just was an amazing introduction as a brand new young student to have him teach that first class. And I will always treasure that, actually.
Yes. That is.
But I could not program in music anymore.
No.
So what are you working on at present? I know both of you are not standing still. Well, Louise is still extremely active in the college. I couldn't do without her assistance. And I know she makes such a huge difference with our students at present, but I know Tom is doing that as well. So who wants to go first?
Well, I'm doing a lot. Initially, when I retired, I did a lot of websites for a lot of different organizations. And now I'm doing some for myself where I've got my own ideas I like to put forth, one of which is investing for retirement, if anyone's interested. I've got the absolute certain safest way to do that, and I've got a whole website and presentation. In fact, that's one of the things I'm doing for the ILR courses. Remodeling my daughter's basement for the second time. Just stuff like that just keeps me really busy.
Oh, yes, I know you are very busy. And Louise?
Well, I have just had a crazy, when you think about it, last 9 years for somebody who came from the energy industry, right? So I came back a little over 9 years ago to start this institute. And in a way, it's sort of circling back from what I got when I was here. So the Leadership Institute is where we have students from like computer science and software engineering, but also the other kinds of engineering. And we work together with them to sort of bring real world. So I have them in over a 3-year period for 6 semesters, and we bring the real world learnings to them. So they have that in addition to the courses that you take in computer science, et cetera, et cetera. And it has really been a joy, and many alums have helped on this journey. So I've had actually a lovely ability to re-engage with them and maybe help make their futures a little easier. I can't, they're all going to have to go through their own trials and tribulations, but I was lucky enough to have people like Tom. So I hope we can do that for some of these young people.
Oh, well, I know you have made a huge difference because I've attended some of those meetings with your Lockheed Martin alumni, and I know how positively or, what they think the impact of that program is on their lives. So I know that you've done, there's just so many questions coming in, and I know that we are close to out of time. But I did want to post this. So this is a question that was asked. Has Miami considered honoring Larry Prince somehow for starting the systems analysis program? And I can tell you that definitely we have thought about setting up a scholarship fund or something in his honor in the college. So that is definitely something that we would like to do. And I will also talk to Tom as well as, Jim Kuiper and Eric Bachman and see what else we can do to honor his just for starting this program. The other one is, maybe this will be a shorter question. How did adding microcomputer courses and a microcomputer lab change the department and the student experience?
Changed everything. I forget the name of the guy that started a microcomputer lab, but I remember going into it and he showed me something. And then, oh boy, this is going to take a long time. And he turned it on and stuff flashed on the screen like that.
Yes.
Oh my God, this is a whole new world. And so we started moving towards microcomputers. There was a microcomputer course that I taught. That might have been the fly down incident course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changed everything.
It changed, yeah. And I think it also changed, I believe, the culture of the profession to some extent, right? On who thought they could come into the profession and who thought that they might not be welcome.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And also now with microcomputers, you could distribute computing. It used to be the central computer, but now we've got distributed computing, and that changes everything.
That's true. Louise, did you want to add something to that? Because I know you have looked into that as well.
Right. One of the things that I would love is, I think it's made all of us sad when we see that people think that they can't be part of this for, that they're not talented enough as a young person to go into computers. And I think if anything that all of you can do that are listening today is if you have any contact with young people, and if they happen to be people of color or they happen to be women or whatever, dispel them of that thought.
Yes.
That would be my one request. Because this little kid, this little scared kid from the farm could do it. So I know they can do it.
Yeah, now that we've gotten rid of multidimensional calculus, they might be more likely.
I love that course.
And there was a question about, systems analysis and design course. They said, does anything like that course still exist? Interviewing
I
users.
think it does. Yeah.
It does. Actually, in Capstone, it does. And I attended the Capstone design presentations, and I saw that the students actually do talk to the clients and ask them what they want before they start going down. And that's a big part of what they do. So it does, yes.
And I'm pretty sure that in software engineering, they also cover a lot of that.
Yes, they
probably
do.
Computer science too, but I know for sure, I think it's software engineering.
That's true. And I know, Louise, you see our students regularly, and one thing that has definitely stayed the same is that liberal arts foundation that we build on, right? And our students, the ones that come through, they have so many interests outside of computing and engineering. And I just think that is what makes them special. They have that special something to them because we have students who have an additional major in music or theater or in emerging technologies.
You mean real music, not the music of Larry Prince.
Yes, real music. Exactly, Tom. So,
Yes, I agree. And they're very, very special. And, in a way, they create their own special interest area through a minor.
Okay. And Jim Kuiper actually piped in and he said there's a systems analysis heritage scholarship fund that alums can contribute to. in fact, that was set up to honor the program, because we realize how much it means to so many people. And I can tell you, new generations coming in, especially in light of this pandemic, lots of them have required additional support. So the scholarships have meant a lot to them. And in fact, I think last year, emergency fund was something else that we set up, and that was heavily used by our students because they were impacted negatively by by either their family members losing jobs or they not being able to come back to school. So in all those cases, the university has always made sure that the students have the opportunity to get an education. So one last question. Are any mainframe classes taught today? I don't think so. I don't know.
think so. What's a mainframe?
So yeah, and this very, I guess, poignant as well as funny question. Any regrets regarding the evolution of the program? Is there a Punchcard memorial?
Well, we actually do have a place in our building.
That's what I was going to mention.
Benton Hall. That's our computer. It's like the
museum.
history of
Yes.
museum.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have punch cards, and we have, each of us have contributed, lots of people have contributed old things. So I hope after things are safe again, that any of you will come and visit and look us up, and then we'll show you that we do have kind of a memorial to all of those things.
Hi, Scott.
And I think Molly is going to come on. So.
Thank you all. Just given the comments and just little bips that have come in during this webinar, clearly this is a group of alumni who hold systems analysis very near and dear to their heart. So many folks have the same relationship that you describe, Louise, a closeness to their professors and to their fellow students. Really, it's just been a pleasure to read all of these, little comments and happy memories that folks have. What a group of co-alumni you have going on. Thank you to you all for joining us today. We are so happy that you were able to have this little stroll down memory lane and talk a little bit about how things have evolved. I just want to remind our audience that you can view this webinar in its entirety later this afternoon after we've concluded. And we also have a short little slideshow presentation, just a couple pictures, some old photos, just to sort of help you round out your time on memory lane. So that's all the time we have for today. Please stay tuned for that. And thank you again to Dr. Sukumaran, to Louise, and to Tom.
Does lunch come with this? I mean, this was lunch hour.
Right? Somebody should be serving it up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Tom, I just want to say that I got several, and when I say several, I mean a whole lot of comments that you haven't changed one. And there's
I can contest to that.
As well. So we appreciate all three of you for being here today and for leading the webinar. Please stay tuned to our viewers, to our website here for another CEC conversation, this time about paper science, coming in May. You can check out that and our other webinar presentations at alumlc.org/MiamiOH. And thank you all for joining us again. Please enjoy the slideshow to play. Love and honor.
Bye. It's been really fun. Sorry I can't see you all.